Now, we've gone to Gibraltar Weekend Market and hit just about every vendor we could find for fresh produce, fresh meat, homemade spices, homemade desserts, and even some bacon that is exclusive to one shop here in London. We went over to Gibraltar Fruits and Vegetables and picked up a load of fresh vegetables and fruit that we're going to incorporate into a monochromatic salad with a bit of an Irish twist to it. We've also stopped by Diamond in the Rough and picked up some flavored oil, flavored with rosemary in fact, which is very traditional Irish, and some seasoning salt, which is homemade, so it's better for us and healthier. Then we stopped by Bob's Ultimate Meats and got these gorgeous pepper steaks that we're gonna make as our main course. We've gone over to RC Peanuts, which is so much more than peanuts, and picked up some walnuts we're going to incorporate into our dinner as well. And of course, over to Prospector Foods and picked up some Pop Shop Pop in a root beer style. And this product here, which is exclusive to Prospector Foods, is a double smoked bacon. It's got no sugar, no MSG, and there's no gluten. And last but not least, we've gone to Jared's Bakery, and they've made us a traditional green bundt cake that we're gonna gussy up a little bit for our end. So, now we've got all of our ingredients together, let's get happy. Okay, so now we're going to get started on our dinner. And to save ourselves some time, we're going to start with the thing that's going to take the longest to cook, which will be our braised cabbage. So essentially, what we're going to make for dinner today is going to be our monochromatic salad that's been roasted with some fresh orange and lime dressing. Then we're going to follow it up with our main course, which will be some braised cabbage, very traditional dish. We're going to make a potato pancake, and also we're going to fry up some of these beautiful pepper steaks. And to finish it off, like I said, we're going to be making that bundt cake with a bit of a peach brandy flambe, just to heighten things up a little bit. It's gonna get you happy and your date happy. You're gonna have a wonderful night after that. Okay, let's move on to the cabbage. We gotta get this in. So we've got 3 of these beautiful little cabbages. Now you could use one big one, or you could use 3 small ones. So essentially, I'm going to core these by cutting them in quarters and then taking out the little hard part that we can't actually use, which is great for your composter. So I've got them quartered, and if you can see here, you'll notice a difference in texture. It goes leaf, 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 and then there's something that's not even furrowed in there. So it's great to see. You can tell even by the direction that the cabbage is growing. So we're just gonna slice those out. Now, all fruits and vegetables, usually you wanna rinse, of course, but sometimes with lettuces, you wanna peel out the outer layer. If it looks a little bit unpretty, get rid of it. Okay, now we're gonna do what is like a julienne, basically, and just slice it up. So sometimes if you notice when you're chopping your vegetables, it'll start to get a little bit unbalanced. So I'll simply take it from the small base to the wide base, throw it down, and I've restructured its balance again. So I'm just gonna go ahead and cut up all this cabbage. Okay, well now we've finished chopping up our cabbage. So now we're gonna add the rest of our ingredients in here. And as you can see, it's just a julienne, it's a rough chop. And it's gonna be braising, so eventually it's gonna break down and spread apart anyway. So we have these wonderful walnuts here. We're gonna put them in there. This is gonna add a nice nutty flavor. Brown sugar, which is gonna give us the sweetness of the sugar and a bit of that tang of brown sugar, which is gonna give us the sweetness of the sugar and a bit of that tang of the blackstrap molasses that actually makes that brown sugar brown. So I'm gonna go 2 heaping teaspoons in there essentially. We've got some red wine. Basically, you can use a table wine. It doesn't have to be a high-end wine, but something you would drink is probably best. I'm pouring about half a liter in there. Now, just to offset some of our flavor, I'm going to use a bit of this Pop Shop Pop root beer. It's gonna have sugar in it, which is gonna sweeten up a little bit more, but it's also got a very distinct flavor in it, which will essentially give us a whole new element to our braised cabbage. Now, essentially, braising is filling up whatever it is you're cooking 2/3 full of liquid and then just letting it do its thing on the stove. That's where it's gonna get happy. All the flavors are gonna combine and it's gonna break down the cell wall structures of this coleslaw. So in effect, I'm just gonna add a little bit of water to this to bring up just our levels. And then I'm gonna put it on the stovetop and just let it go for about 45 minutes to an hour until I start smelling it and I can see that's the texture that I want. For the temperature of the cabbage, you wanna bring it up to a boil and then take it down to a low simmer. So we're looking at a very low heat once we have the temperature inside the pot. Now we've got our braised cabbage in the background. We've brought it up to a boil, lowered it back down to a simmer. We're gonna let it do its thing back there. Like I said, we want that braised cabbage getting happy. Now we're going to move on to what I've labeled as our roasted monochromatic salad. So we have a lot of vegetables that are all green. some wonderful green beans, some fresh green bell peppers. We have some broccoli, which is obviously green. We have green apples and limes as well, which is going to go into our dressing. So essentially, I'm picking some beans, which really only means there's this little end right here, and you have to pick it off because that's really the hardest thing on your digestive tract in your teeth. So we've got our beans, nice and picked. Peppers, very simple. We're going to cut them open, and it's called ribbing them, so we're just going to take out the flesh. Very simple. I'm just pulling it out, and I'm going to slap them a little bit. Because we've got some zucchini as well, some green zucchini to add another little level of flavor, and it's also green as well. Now, if you're worried about this not popping on your plate, you could substitute your green peppers for yellow peppers or orange peppers, or you could throw in a yellow zucchini in there as well. Okay, so for my peppers, and once again, you want all of your vegetables roughly the same size as this. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with the broccoli. Essentially, we're just going to crown it. So we're gonna take off the bottom and get all the florets in there. It's wonderful bright green broccoli right here in the middle of winter. Well, it's quite common for chefs, but a lot of people don't know is that inside of your broccoli, right in the middle of the stem is what we call the broccoli heart. And it's just this white here, and this is where all the nutrients travels up. So I save these for stir fry. It's kind of like the bamboo flavor. Or you can use them in a stir fry, into an omelet perhaps. I'm gonna grab my zucchinis. I'm just gonna cut the top and the bottom off. Take them down in half. Now, I personally don't like the flavor of zucchinis. However, they're really good for you, and I found an easy way to help them be enjoyable for everyone, including myself. Okay, so essentially, I'm just going to take a teaspoon and run it up the middle, and you can actually see them pop out, all these seeds. That's where the bitter flavor is in the zucchini. Now I've removed my seeds. I'm just gonna give them a nice big rough chop, so they're roughly the same size as my broccoli florets. Just gonna run some cold water on these. Just get any grit or sand that's left on them out. But this little bit of water, I wanna put it in there. It's not a lot, just residual. That's gonna help these vegetables steam a little bit while they're roasting. It's gonna help our cook time. Now we're gonna use this wonderful flavored oil we got from Diamond in the Rough. Okay, and this homemade seasoning right here. I'm really just gonna take a few pinches out, of course with dry, clean hands. Now because we have the oil on our vegetables, it's gonna help the seasoning stick to them. So just a nice toss. If you don't feel comfortable tossing, you can use a spoon or a fork. I've got 2 non-stick pans here, just typical bake sheets. If you don't have non-stick pans, you can line them with tin foil. Since mine are a little bit more rugged and rustic than the other ones, I'm just gonna use some of the oil that we have, and I'm just gonna rub it around with my hands. That way I won't have any vegetables sticking and burning while I'm cooking. I have my oven set to 375. I'm gonna get these little guys in there. As you can see, it's just all green. Spread them all out. You're gonna notice too, they're gonna start developing some color. Your broccoli is gonna change, your peppers are gonna change, even your zucchini is gonna darken up a bit. This is what we want. That's when it starts to cook, the natural flavors are coming out, the broccoli's getting happy, it's hanging out with the zucchini, they're all getting fun in your oven. I've got my oven at 375 degrees. We're gonna put it in there for probably about 10 to 12 minutes. If you wanna keep an eye on this, this is not something you wanna let go. So I'll pop it in the oven, 1 on each level, and we're gonna go with that. Once you start smelling it and you can see the color developing, that's when it's time to bring it out. Okay, well, it is a very good idea for the braised cabbage to check on it once in a while. Get in there, stir it around, make sure nothing's sticking to the bottom. But because it's braising, it doesn't need a lot of attention, which is great. Also, to prepare for the cooking of the steaks and the making of our potato pancakes, I've taken the liberty of slicing up a little bit of bacon, just so I'm gonna crisp it off a bit, and I'm gonna save that fat because we're gonna be frying our steaks and our potatoes in that bacon fat. If you don't want to add bacon to your recipe, simply switch that out for butter with a little bit of oil or straight oil. No problem. Okay, we're going to move on to our salad dressing. And we're going to stick with a simple citrus vinaigrette. And oranges are so healthy, but the problem is that orange juice isn't. So we're going to take some fresh juice out of our oranges. Well, first I've actually rolled it on the table first, very simply. Put it underneath your palm, squish it down a bit like that, and that just breaks down the cell walls and makes it a little bit easier to deal with. Cut it in half, get your fork right in there, and you can see all that juice is gonna come out. Beautiful fresh oranges, and the flavor is so much better. And the health, there's no added flavors, there's no added sugars, there's no salt, it's just fresh juice. Now, I've taken the liberty of skipping a little bit ahead of that and gone ahead and juiced a bit of this up. The orange juice is gonna be the main component of our dressing, but we're not gonna need a lot of dressing because there's gonna be so much flavor in the vegetables anyway. So I got my orange juice in there. I got a beautiful lime. I'm gonna do the same thing I did with my citrus fruit, my orange rather. It's all citrus fruit. But you wanna break it down, squish it down a bit, slice it in half, get your fork right in there, and you'll see the juice come pouring out. Now, essentially the flavor, you're gonna have about 3 to 4 parts orange juice and only 1 part lime, just because the lime is so bold and robust. We want the dressing to come together and be all balanced, as opposed to just tasting one, either the orange or the lime. Now, you can skip this part too, but I've got a little bit of honey mustard here. Basically, any mustard is fine. You can use Dijon, you can use even dry powder. But basically, this is gonna help everything kind of stick together. So only just a titch. Not even enough to put on a hot dog, just a little bit. I've got all that in there. I'm just gonna whisk it around. And that's it. Do a little taste test here. That's good, it's got some zest to it. It's got some orange flavor, got a little bit of lime flavor. You can add some salt in here if that's all right with your diet. Put a little cracked black pepper in there. But you can also wait until the end when you've tossed your salad and drizzled it. Then you can add your salt and pepper at the end so you're not overcompensating. Because if you add salt now, you can't take it away later. So that's all ready. I've only used the 1 bowl and a whisk and we're ready to go. So we're just gonna wait for our vegetables. Once they're happy, we'll dump them in there, toss them, then it's ready to plate. Wonderful, our vegetables are done. We had them in the oven for about 10 to 12 minutes at 375. And I'm just gonna use tongs to scrape it all in there, give it a toss, and then we're gonna start plating it up for a presentation. So just one quick little toss right now. We'll just do one quick toss, or just run your vegetables around into that dressing. This is what we did is we saved our apple for last. A lot of people are scared to use apples in recipes because it browns so quickly. Essentially, you can have this ready and sitting in your orange juice already because the acidity of the orange juice and the lime juice or even lemon juice will stop your apple from browning. So I'm just gonna core this. I cut it into quarters rather. And I'm gonna take out my seeds and my stem and slice this down. Like I said, if this is something that isn't something that you wanna do fasted on the fly at the last minute, then have these already chopped and sitting in your juice. It's gonna be having all that same flour anyway, so the apple's just gonna get happy in there with your dressing. And you can just smell all those aromas from the roasting and the oils and the dressing and the vegetables all mixing and mingling in there. It's gonna make for one beautiful salad. So we have this gorgeous Boston Bib lettuce. We're just going to crown the bottom. You could pop it like we do an iceberg lettuce and then take out the core, but it's so delicate and fragile, and really we only want these leaves for presentation. So go around, pull off some nice leaves, and plate them around. In with some of your vegetables. Now you want to pull out whatever you want, or if you just want to just scoop it right in, that's fine. I kind of like to pick and choose, so there's a little bit of everything in there. A little finishing touch, we have some gorgeous leaf lettuce here. So I'm just going to take a couple leaves. So I've rolled it up. A little shift and add, if you remember from our other episodes. And this is going up on top here. Now if you're worried about color, grab one of your oranges. So easy to do. Cut out a wheel, halfway down it, slicer. Give it a little twist on the top. Monochromatic salad. And we're gonna move on to the next course, which is our main course. Essentially, we're going to be making some potato pancakes in an easier, more traditional way. And also, we're going to have some nice peppercorn steaks. We're going to fry in some pork fat, and we're gonna bring it together with our braised cabbage, which we made at the beginning of the episode. So essentially, I have rinsed off these beautiful potatoes, and I've got my handy dandy cheese grater, and I'm just gonna take it down the side here. This is a fast, easy way to prep up your potato pancakes. Okay, so essentially I've grated them all down. Only go as far as you can. You don't wanna hurt your fingers on there, and this is great for your compost. We're just gonna throw it away. No good. To make our time easier and less starchy as well, if you take these potatoes and you just squeeze them, you can see a lot of this moisture come out. We don't need that moisture. It's gonna slow down our cooking. Once it mixes with the fat too, it's gonna start spinning. And really, all that is just water and starch. We're gonna have enough starch just eating the potatoes. So I've got this beautiful seasoning from Diamond in the Rough. We're just gonna open it up. Now, how much flavor you want depends on your style. I'm gonna go with a bit of a medium flavor. I'm just gonna shake it right down on top. I've got it set on medium so I can control a little bit more what's going on in there. So that's in there. Now I'm just gonna mix it up a little bit with my fingers. The potatoes are accepting that seasoning. They're starting to get happy already. Okay, wonderful. I have my pan set to about a medium heat. And I'm going to use some of that flavored rosemary olive oil. Olive oil's got a low smoking point, it's healthy, and it's already got some more flavor into it. It's gonna combine it all for a main dish. I've got my pan at medium heat. I've squeezed all the moisture out of my potatoes. Now you can form it as big as you want. You got a smaller appetite, make a smaller pancake. Don't worry about forming it too much. I'm gonna get in there with a spoon later and kind of push the ends in. Dinner for two pancakes. I'm gonna put it back on my burner. Cook the first half, flip them over and finish in the oven. Shouldn't take very long at all. So it's time now to flip our pancakes. So I brought them over here away from the stove. You can do this over top of your burner. But once you got a little, you can even check them like normal pancakes. Pull them up and look underneath and see what kind of color you got. Like I said, you just kind of mush them all together and keep those potatoes cooking together. And we're just gonna finish these off in the oven so it binds a little bit more. You can keep frying them, but then you get more grease in there and it won't bind as much. All right, into the oven, and we're still at 375. And essentially, we can hold these in the oven. We can drop the temperature down, and you can keep them warm while we finish off our meal by cooking our steak. Well, now we've made our potato pancakes. It might be a little bit touch and go for some of you new chefs out there, but don't be scared of them. If they don't come out perfectly all right, we're gonna be putting food on top of them. It's more of a base for our flavor. It's gonna absorb all the stuff that goes through, and it's gonna be happy. The trick is don't overcook them. If it ends up turning out like hash browns, you can form them on your plate at the very end anyway. Not a problem. Well, on to the main course of our main course, which is these beautiful pepper steaks. Now, essentially, it's how do you wanna do your steak? Do you like it blue rare? Do you like it well done? So, because there's such a nice tender cut of meat and it's fresh, hormone-free, that we want it at room temperature because you can cook it to any likeness you want. I like mine blue rare, maybe even rare. Some of you might like yours well done. So essentially, we've got some of the bacon fat from that beautiful bacon we had earlier, and I've got my pan up. I want to get it hot, almost to the point of smoking. And then I'm gonna put my steaks in, I'm gonna sear it and crust to one side, and I'm gonna flip those. Now, for me, if I'm gonna have my steak rare, I can cook it right in the pan. For any one of you that's doing it maybe more to medium or well, fire that in the oven and let it get happy and finish itself in there. So I have my pan at a medium heat and it's just about to smoke. This is where you want to put in your room temperature steaks. Now, if this was ground chuck from a purveyor you don't know very well, you're gonna want to cook your ground chuck, which you make into, say, beef hamburgers or a chili. You're gonna want to cook that all the way because you want to kill any germs. But since these are so well and we know our butcher, we can cook them to any temperature we want without any risk of getting sick. Important thing too is we got that fat, it's hot. It might not be smoking, but it's hot. So when I put the steak in, I want to push it away from my body. By pushing it away, if there's any splash, it's not going to come at me. It's going to go in the back of the stove. It's just a safety tip, but once you start using it all the time, it'll just become second nature. Okay, essentially, what's going on here is that I've used that fat to encrust the one side. So I'm just going to show you. I'm going to flip this, but I'm going to push it away towards you at home. That way, if it's going to splash up, it's going that way, away from me. Flip this other one. Now, if you like your steak a little bit less done, like I do, I'm gonna take it out right now. I'm gonna finish it off when the well done steak is ready to go. So I can take this guy out. I'm gonna fire this guy in the oven. 375 is a good place to play with, so you're not gonna cook too fast. And depending on the size of your steak, that's gonna determine how long it's going to stay in the oven for. So you're gonna wanna play with it a little bit and get comfortable with your meat. I can't say exactly how much time it is if you want a perfect on steak. So remember how to test it and remember your temperatures. Okay, this is the sweet spot. Everything is ready to come together. So by making our potatoes and sticking them in the oven, we can hold them so they're still warm. We've got braised cabbage. We can leave on real low heat on the back burner until we're ready. And our steak, we're just gonna do it at the last minute and cook it till exactly where we want it. We're going to plate this now. Just by definition in this recipe, it's gonna be a little bit bitter, which is what we're aiming for with the walnuts and the root beer. If you don't like that, simply you can add more brown sugar. You can even use honey and bring the flavor up. As you go through, you can just dip a little teaspoon in there and taste the broth, or bite right into the cabbage and you'll know. So now we've got our beautiful braised cabbage on the plate. We got our nice happy potato pancakes. Now, I made one bigger than the other one, as in a pink and a blue size, but you don't have to do anything like that. If you want to make them all identical, you go right ahead. I've taken essentially my rare steak here. The one that we fired in the oven is the one that's gonna be a little bit more well done. And just for a quick finishing touch, we've got some fresh sweet butter. And all I'm going to do is cut off a couple little pats, put it on top, and let that melt in. And that's your sauce. So there you have it. Braised cabbage, potato pancakes, and pepper steak with butter. Now let's move on to dessert. So essentially, we're going to make a peach flambe. Now, people are scared of lighting it on fire. Essentially, you don't need to flambe your flambe. If you just cook it down, you're gonna get all those flavors. It's still gonna have a nice happy syrup, so it's not a big deal. However, flambe essentially just is French for to fire. So that's all we're going to do. And it's gonna elevate the flavor and bring some of our butter and our peaches in together. But like I said, it is not essential. So I've melted some butter, about 2 pats per peach, and I've got them melted in a pan. We're going to bring our pan up to about a medium-high heat. We want to be able to use the butter to caramelize our peaches. So while that's getting warmed up, I got my paring knife, and I'm just going to cut into these beautiful fresh peaches. Now because it's a pitted fruit, it's a lot easier. So I've cut all the way around, and I pull it open, and reach in and grab my pit. Now depending on how thick you cut your peaches, is the faster they will cook and more they'll caramelize. I'm going about a medium thickness. Welcome back. Essentially all you miss is just myself cutting up the peaches and placing them into the pan with butter. So I'm gonna go bring those back over so you can see what we've done. And in a sense, most people are thinking we're gonna caramelize the peaches. No, we're caramelizing that butter. The natural sugars from the peach are coming out. All that beautiful butter and those peaches are making this wonderful sauce in the bottom. Now to finish off our flambe, it doesn't have to be expensive brandy. People are always thinking brandy is so much money. Now I've brought it off, I'm using gas burner, so I have open flame. I want to be able to control this, so I brought it over the table for us. You can smell the brandy, it's pulling off all the sugars and the caramel from the bottom of the pan. A little barbecue lighter. Now, if you're worried about this, what's gonna happen is when the alcohol burns off, it's gonna put itself out. It's nice to make sure you know you got safety taken care of. I have a fire extinguisher real close, and also I got a lid to smother it if it gets too far. And that's it. Once your flame goes out, take your spoon, just push it along the bottom of the pan. It's called deglazing. So all that flavor that got stuck to our pan is now coming back up. And you can actually even see it. Little bits of the sugar and the butter have stuck. Because of the alcohol and the vitamin C, the acid in the peaches, it is just coming right out. Now, if you want your sauce to be thick, put it back on the burner and bring it down slowly. If you want it a little bit more loose, so it'll go into our bun cake, then leave it. I'm gonna have mine a little bit looser. Time to plate our dessert. It's a dessert for 2, but I'm gonna make it on one plate for a little bit more romantic. So I got this beautiful bun cake. It's so moist and tender, it's gonna absorb all these flavors. So I want a couple of peaches for each person, and I'm just going to use my spoon to hold back my goodies and just get the happy sauce that's in the bottom there. Because it's so rich, a little is actually gonna go a long way. Here is our peach flambe over Irish bundt cake. So thank you to Diamond in the Rough. Also want to say thank you to Bob's Ultimate Meats. Also, I'd like to thank the Cheese Trap. Thank you goes out to Gibraltar Bakery. And of course, Gibraltar Fruits and Vegetables. And let's not forget the double smoked bacon from Prospector Foods. And remember, next time we're at Gibraltar Weekend Market, to mention me, Chef Michael, and all these wonderful foods you've seen on our television show.